Sherrill was the one who initially wanted a solar home. It was her dream to live in a solar home, but we felt we couldn't afford doing it. However, when she heard that the city, or the city council actually in DC, was developing the Clean Affordable Energy Act of 2008, we began taking a closer look. The Renewable Energy Incentive Program for solar homeowners, which now covers solar thermal systems as well for hot water. But the initial bill required homeowners to apply for a grant, and Sherrill tried looking at the grant, decided it was too complicated, and walked away from it for a hot moment. Then she heard that Mount Pleasant had a co-op. The solar co-ops, we have two things about our mission that any solar co-op in DC has to do, and that is support open access to everyone for solar and to work to make that solar power more affordable. So that's kind of the very thumbnail, and there are now 11 solar co-ops here in Washington, D.C. In each one of the wards. In fact, we just came back from Ward 7 doing some work with the Ward 7 Solar Co-op for a DC solar flare that we're putting on June 16th. And it really, the idea of this event is to give everybody in the continuum of green businesses and organizations a chance to talk about what they're about. But the central focus from an energy is that people understand their options, they understand what the financing is, and they have a chance to talk to reputable businesses that are working in the DC. And generally, we hope that after we've been doing this for some time, we'll be able to get it to the point where we've got cooperation from the District of Columbia government and the DC Sustainable Energy Utility, and we can actually have one-stop shopping for people. When you have a solar system, what happens is the sun strikes a microcrystalline silicon panel, and it knocks electrons loose in the silicone. The electrons are what basically come together to form direct current electricity. But since our homes run on alternating current, the inverter has to shift the direct current to alternating current. That's what the inverter is. The inverters last about 10 or 11 years, so you may have to replace the inverter box. It'll probably,
about $300.
Currently they cost about $1,000. In 10 years it'll probably cost $250 and they'll be this big.
During the design development phase in about 2006, we started to come up with some ideas of what those elements might look like. The base was a sculptural flower, and it was during a meeting with the community up at the local high school. And the general consensus was, we like the idea of an architectural sculptural element, but can it be something more than just lights or just sort of architecture? And someone actually said, you know, can we make it produce like solar? Can it be solar? And at the time, I was actually doing some solar panels for my house, and so I was familiar with the process of working with the Department of the Environment. And so we were able to use the community input to talk with DDOT and OP to actually have them include the funding for the photovoltaics in the project. So I kind of give the community credit for sort of being the stimulus for that idea. In terms of integrating the panels, with the fountain in the plaza, the other argument for integrating photovoltaics was that it's a net meter, and so it's tied into the power for the fountain. And there was a lot of concern from the agencies on maintaining the fountain, and so the other argument for the solar panels was not only did it produce electricity for the light, it actually produces electricity for the fountain. And so it would actually provide a long-term operations benefit.
In an urban environment, you know, portability is something that, you know, it's not as important, I guess, because, you know, when you live in a big city, you have power sources everywhere. So it's something that is not discussed on a frequent basis. When you move away from the city, more suburban neighborhoods, your more rural locations, you'll see more usage of mobile systems, whether it's off-grid systems, because, you know, there's a huge market where or a huge area within the United States where you can't have conventional energy sources because it's either too far from the grid or it's just not cost effective to run a power line all the way to, you know, a remote location. It just doesn't make sense. The economics to moving forward with that just doesn't work out. So for those homeowners or those consumers, you know, solar energy makes sense. So it's more, it is considered, you know, in my opinion, a mobile off-grid type system.
The reality is that the fossil fuel supply is getting more and more scarce. It's getting more expensive to do it. And so one of the things that students need to understand is that, or don't need to, we'd like them to understand, is that it's very important for them to be concerned about policies being set that get solar and renewables into the hands of the end users, of communities, because once they've got it, they'll take advantage of it.